All right. What's up, YouTube? We are back with another fight breakdown, and I'm really excited for this breakdown. All right. Wanted to get back on track finally. Everything's been trying to get settled into the new spot, and I'm starting to work on my new station. There's a lot more that I really want to do here, but we'll get to it. All right. And I'm happy to move on from the Spence Crawford talk. It was fun. It was a little bit fun on social media. It made it a couple videos on it. But I want to get back to talking boxing and doing breakdowns for upcoming fights. We got a lot of fights coming up, and I'm looking forward to break down, starting with this one. Okay, this weekend, Saturday, November 5th, at 1 p.m. Eastern. All right, the ring walkout should be about 5 p.m. Eastern, live on dazn. All right, these guys are going to be fighting out of Abu Dhabi. My bad. You got Dmitry Bivol. He's going to be defending his WBA light heavyweight title against Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez, all right, this weekend. And both of these fighters are undefeated. I'm looking forward to this fight because they're both in their physical prime. They're both 31 years of age, and there should be no excuses for the loser, because, they're both fit. They're both looking good. They're coming off good wins. And it should be a good matchup, So let's talk about Zurdo real quick. He's 31, like I said, he's 31 years of age. He's taller, he's 6'2 and a half. He has a 75-inch reach. He's a heavy guy that's coming in over 200 pounds. All right, so he's a very big light heavyweight. He's not a career light heavy, but he's been there for the last 5 fights or so. And he's been stopping just about every opponent he's faced since he's moved up from super middleweight. All right. He's 44 wins with, I believe, 30 knockouts, something like that, undefeated. And when you look at those wins, he has a lot of professional fights, but he started pro very young. He started pro at like 18. He started as a teenager, and he was fighting, taking a lot of fights in Mexico on the come up, similar to Canelo. All right. He's not like Bivol, who's fought as an amateur for a long time. All right. Very experienced amateur who started much later. All right. And then you have Dmitry Bivol, who's also 31 years in age, and he's 6 foot. He's not as tall. He's 72-inch reach. So he has the height and reach disadvantage here. He's 20 wins, 11 knockouts, something like that. No losses, no draws or anything like that. And he's the better amateur between the two. They both took different routes in their careers. One became pro early, the other one stayed as an amateur later, but was a great amateur. All right. So with that being said, this is a great matchup. This is going to be on dazn. This is a golden boy fighter against a matchroom fighter, and it should be a good fight, man. It should be a good matchup. You got more of a technical, more fundamental type of fighter against more of a very dominant, offensively dominant type of fighter, and Gilberto Ramirez. All right. So let's talk about Zurdo. Zurdo, who, he's been in there with guys like, first of all, he's a southpaw. Dmitry Bivol is an orthodox fighter. So let's start with that because, I always like to compare exactly, who these fighters face that are similar. And that's when it comes to the film study that I've been doing for the past couple of days. When it comes to the film study, I was kind of searching for Bivol and seeing what southpaws he faced, because southpaws are usually, they're experienced in fighting other orthodox fighters. But when it came to Bivol, I wanted to see what he had, and he has a few fights, but they are kind of earlier in his pro career, and they're against fighters that's not really on a level of Zurdo Ramirez, right? But when I watched those fights, it looked like Bivol fought at the very same pace that he's very fast paced. I know he's very technical, but he's a guy that throws a lot of punches. Mainly jabs. And he is pretty aggressive. And I didn't see any difference when he fought the southpaws that he faced. He looked very comfortable with doing it. It didn't look like And even though these are earlier in his career, I mean, he's always looked very good, you know, and it didn't look like anything changed and in those older fights, you know, compared to now, where he's much more experienced as a pro, you know. And let me just pull up his record real quick. Yeah, you know, outside of maybe like a couple of fights, like maybe there was a period where he was a little inactive in between the Rivera fight and the Craig Richards fight, where in the Craig Richards, he didn't look great. You know, that was one of the fights where I felt like Bivol didn't look that good, you know, as he did, you know, when he fought Joe Smith Jr. and John Pascal and stuff like that. So that was the only period where Bivol didn't look that great. But when he fought Southpaws, he looked just as sharp as he would look against an orthodox fighter. Looked very comfortable, and that was the key thing for me. All right. When it came to Zurdo and doing film study for him, you know, I remember watching the Jesse Hart fights, so I went back and checked those fights out a little bit. I was kind of looking to see who Zurdo had faced that is kind of comparable to a Dmitry Bivol, and there wasn't much there, but I did see the Maxine Glasov fight the other day, all right, which is an older fight. It's a 2015 fight, a win that he had against a fighter that has similarities to Bivol in his style, you know, the quick step backs, you know, to get in and out of danger, the use of his jab. You know, the guy knows how to control range really well. And it was a very, very competitive fight. You know, even though Zurdo got the win there, it was very competitive. And the key thing that I noticed in that fight, you know, Zurdo did well in the fight. But I think he gassed. I think it was a 10-rounder. And I think he gassed pretty bad in that fight, you know, and it didn't really look good for him on that end, you know. And again, this is when he was at 168. You know, he's fought a lot of fighters since then. The fight was in 2015, so I get it. I think he looks stronger at 175 for sure because he's not nearly as drained, and he's stopped everyone that he's fought at 175 since he's moved up. But the Vlasov fight is probably the go-to fight if you're looking to something for a fight to compare styles. But Maxime Vlasov is not as talented as Bivol, in my opinion. You know, I think Bivol, as far as being a technical fighter, I think he's one of the top 10 best fighters in the world. And his technical ability is up there. You know, I think he's one of the, when it comes to fundamental, I mean, he's been my favorite fighter to watch at 175 for years, since the Stevenson, Ward, and Kovalev era. He's been my personal favorite. You know, and I like Beterbiev as well. You guys know I do, but I like Bivol. You know, I like his style. He's a very, very, very good boxer. And that's the fight you should probably go to if you want to compare. But I do believe that Zurdo has improved since then, and I think he's much stronger as a light heavyweight, you know, because of his size. All right, he's going to be much bigger than Bivol on the night of the fight. Much bigger. He's probably going to outweigh him by like 20 pounds or so. All right. So that's kind of what I did for the film study. Let's talk about like exactly what the fighters need to do to win here and the advantages of both. Now, when it comes to Zurdo, he's a front foot heavy type of guy. You know, he's not a guy that likes to sit and fight on his back foot. He needs to be coming forward. He needs to, you know, he needs to be throwing combinations. All right. He needs to have his opponent against the ropes. That's where he really shines. All right, but he has to be dominant offensively, you know, to really perform and look good. And the guys that he's been facing at 175, like Tommy Carpentier, who's decent, you know, Yunieskis Gonzalez, he's good, you know, gave John Pascal a good fight. Who else he fought? He fought Sullivan Barrera a few years, you know, he was able to stop him without too much trouble, but Barrera was already past it. I think Bivol stopped him a few years prior, and Bivol is not even known to be stopping guys like that. So they're solid wins, but this is a huge gap up. And even though he's looked better at 175, and I think he is better, I think a lot of these fighters are better when they're fighting at the division that they belong. At cruiserweight, he can probably fight as a cruiser, and he probably will end his career as a cruiserweight, but he wouldn't be a big cruiserweight. But at super middle and at light heavy, he's huge. Him and Callum Smith are huge at the division. So I think his major advantages here is his size, of course, his power, his ability to be. Oh, he seemed to be a pretty durable fighter. And like I said, he can bully you, and I think once he gets a good rhythm going, he likes to go to war. We've seen the Uniescas Gonzalez fight. That was a war. That was a great fight. But he's a fighter that could be outboxed. He could be outpointed, Jesse Hart, both fights, very close fights. I remember he was able to hurt Jesse Hart, but when it came to the skills, you could see that Jesse was definitely outboxing him in those fights. Again, the Vlasov fight, you got to look at that fight as well. Not so much at 175, though. I think Gonzalez was a great war, and he got hit a lot, but he fought the fight that was presented to him because Gonzalez stepped to him early in that first round. He brought the fight straight at him. And Zurdo, who is not a defensive fighter at all, I'm not going to sit here and say that he's just a fighter that takes every punch that's thrown at him, But at the same time, he's not a guy that moves his head too much. If he's not blocking, if his hands are not up, he's pretty much getting hit with with everything that goes at him, And when he is throwing the combinations, he's very easy to counter, And since Gonzalez brought that kind of fight straight to him, he welcomed it and traded with him, and it actually it was like a friendly, a fight friendly. It was an eye-catching type of fight for the fans because it was like a war, But as far as everybody that he's faced at 175, there was no one that was anywhere near on the skill level as Bivol, or even his whole career. I think Vlasov was probably the closest. Vlasov, as far as technical ability, Vlasov was probably the closest. I would say second, maybe a Jesse Hart, but Zurdo is usually having his way with fighters that, as far as fundamentals, they're not the most gifted in that area and not the most technically sound, so he was able to have his way, being bigger, stronger, more powerful, and once he overwhelms you, he can work on you. And even though I said Zurdo slowed down a bit back when he had that Vlasov fight, that was a long time ago, and it was at a different weight, a weight that I feel that he was weaker at. So I think at this point in his stage, he should be a lot stronger, and I think we're going to get the best version of him. What I would like to say for him to do in order for him to win this fight, I think he's just going to have to be physical, He's going to have to be very physical and rough with Bivol. And go to the body when Bivol is trapped on the ropes and it has that high guard, has that very tight high guard. It's funny because I listened to my own breakdowns, previous breakdowns that I've done with fighters in order to, remind myself on certain things that I've said about these fighters in past fights. And in my most recent one, when I did with Bivol, everything that I said that Canelo needed to do to win that fight, I believe it for this fight as well, But it's just that Zurdo is a bigger fighter, a guy that is more comfortable at the weight more so than Canelo. We've seen that Canelo did decent, but he looked very small, and he looked like he got outworked, and he was actually outboxed as well. Zurdo, I'm not looking for Zurdo to outbox Bivol in order to win this fight. I'm looking for Zurdo to use his jab to close the distance and start throwing combinations. You can't be pretty with this fight. You're not going to win that fight. Not saying to be reckless, but let's be realistic. He has a good jab, right? He throws a good straight left to the body. Use that to close the gap. It won't be easy to land because Bivol is good at stepping in and out. Quick step backs to get himself out of danger, and he's throwing a jab on the move as well. You know what I'm saying? So with that, you want to get in range. You want to attack the body. All right. Try to get some uppercuts through that guard, around the guard. Throw some hooks around that guard. We've seen Canelo do it. He landed some good uppercuts. He landed some good shots to the body. He was able to get some good shots in there. I don't know who's more powerful between Zurdo and Canelo. You know, I'm assuming Zurdo might probably be the bigger puncher because he's the bigger guy. And he's more seasoned at the division, you know. But maybe he can have a little bit more impact with those punches, those heavy shots, going to the body, you know, throwing punches around that guard, getting those uppercuts in there, throwing those combinations. Those combinations are good, especially when he's not moving and his back is against the ropes. Don't waste too many punches. Don't waste any. You got to be aggressive, but don't waste too many because you don't want to burn himself out. Just in case he's that fighter that he was in the older fights at 168 where he was burnt out some. If he is that still guy, and if it's a point where, you know, because this is a 12th round fight, if there's a point where he slows down, it's going to be bad because Bivol is one of the, as far as conditioning, he has great endurance. You know, he's going to be throwing punches at the same rate in the 11th and 12th rounds. So you got to be prepared for that. Be aggressive, but pace yourself. Take, you know, moments of each round out, you know, off. Because Bivol, you got to be prepared for him for 12 rounds. So don't waste too many punches, you know. But on a boxing tip, you know, on the outside, yes, he's going to land some jabs here and there. I'm sure he's going to land some left hands, especially to the body. But he's going to get outboxed, you know. So he has to be an aggressor. He has to close the gap, be physical, be rough with Bivol. Canelo tried to do it, but Canelo is much smaller. Maybe Zurdo will have a better opportunity doing it because he's a naturally bigger man. And we'll see how that goes, you know. But that's exactly what he needs to do to win. Bivol, on the other hand, do what he's normally doing. Yes, he's smaller. All right. No, he's not the KO artist that Zurdo is, but he's a very, very precise puncher, and he's a very, very good defender. All right. If you look at the numbers, the amount of punches that Canelo actually landed clean were very low, especially to the head. All right. Yes, he's a high guard type fighter. All right. Especially when he's moving and he's circling around his opponent. He likes to move and tighten up that guard on the move. But, you know, it's hard to really crack through that guard, you know, and he takes his punches to the body extremely well. He's been in there with punchers like Canelo, Joe Smith Jr. You know, Joe Smith was able to hurt Bivol a few times. All right, but Joe Smith is more like he has a real big overhand right and a monster left hook. I don't know who's the bigger knockout artist or who's the bigger. I think Joe Smith is probably pound for pound like a top 20 puncher in the sport, you know, at least. But, you know, Bivol took a few shots and he recovered quickly, all right? He's proven to be durable. So Bivol used the jab. You know, you're fighting a southpaw. When I seen him fight southpaws, very good at landing that right hand, a straight right hand on a right cross, you know, straight down the pipe, you know, keeping that lead foot on the outside of Zurdo's, real quick, shoot it, you know, and, you know, lean right back, keep yourself right out of sight of danger. You know, use those feet, step in, those quick step in, step backs, using that jab, you know, parrying shots, you know, probing a lot, you know, because you're going to have, he's the orthodox fighter. So there's going to be a lot of probing involved. But parry some of those jabs from Zurdo. and use it to counter with your own jab. We're going to see a lot of that, you know, jabbing Zurdo over his jab. We're going to see a lot of that. And just use his legs, use the quicker feet, turn Zurdo, you know, turn and spin him, throw some combinations and get out of danger. He's not going to be like, he's not the combination puncher that Zurdo is, because Zurdo is a guy that's going to come straight at you and throw combos, where Bivol is more like an ambush. You're not expecting it, you know. He'll jab you all day long, you know. He'll pop shot a little bit, and then out of nowhere, he's stepping in and throwing flurries. The thing is, Zurdo is aggressive as well, but Bivol is aggressive as well, but he picked his spots to do it, you know. And that's what threw Canelo off a lot, because you're not expecting him to be the bully in the fight until he is the bully. And then when he is the bully, he's throwing punches all over the place, you know. And when you're going into that high guard, Bivol knows exactly where to place those punches. He's good at getting those punches around your guard and to the body while remaining very cautious of what's being thrown back. And on a defensive level, that is a clear difference between these two. Bivol is always concerned about what's getting thrown back, especially while they're having the exchanges, whereas Zurdo's head is kind of dead centered. He doesn't really move his head off the line. And, you know, again, like I said earlier in this video, if he's not blocking punches with his gloves or parrying shots, he's pretty much getting punched with throwing. He's not rolling punches that well. He's good at maintaining distance a little bit. You know, he's good mid-range fighter, but he's just not that good at slipping shots at the end of the day. You know, so he's kind of exposed, and that's why I feel like he needs to come at Bivol with intelligence, though. Bivol, he's, again, technique is all there. Fundamentals are all there. You know, Zurdo's is solid, but for him to be in control, he has to be in full control offensively. You know, he has to have a good rhythm going. He has to be throwing combinations. He has to be, when he's not in full control, he's not looking that good. And Bivol is, you know, even when he's backing up from you, he can fight on his back foot. Even when he's moving and using the ring and using the perimeter of the ring or whatever, he's still throwing a jab at the very least. You know, he's still pot-shotting at the very least. But then he's going to jump in at moments of the fight. Maybe not each and every round, but he's going to step in and throw a combination. And if he throws a 4-piece at you, he's probably going to hit you with at least 3. You know, very accurate puncher, very good defender, elite defender. And he's appeared to be a very durable fighter with the punchers that he's faced. You know, so in everything that I said and that breakdown I did against Canelo, I feel like it needs to be done. And I think that there's a chance that Zurdo may be able to do it better. But I don't believe that Zurdo is going to be as accurate as Canelo was in that fight. You know, because I just overall think that even though Canelo was smaller at 175, I still believe that he's a much better boxer. You know, so with all that being said, man, I think Bivol, being the superior boxer normally on his channel, you know, when there's a gap in skills, even when a fighter is big and strong, if I were to see a fight where Bivol just did not know how to weather the storm and he looked like he was panicking in a previous fight when the pressure was on, I would say Zurdo takes it, you know, because he's big, he's powerful. And, you know, I think he's a better fighter at 175. But Zurdo has fought the punchers. You know, he's dealt with pressure, you know, and he's been rocked. And he's looked comfortable every single time. And I just got to go with Bivol on points. Because endurance, defense, just overall fundamentals and boxing technique, experience, because he's fought the better fighters. We're talking about a guy that just came off a win against Canelo Alvarez, you know, and And I don't know what Canelo could really do at 175. I know he beat Kovalev, but at 175 right now against prime fighters, I don't know what he can do. But if you're counting Isaac Chilemba, John Pascal, Joe Smith Jr., Sullivan Barrera at a better time. That's a common opponent, but he fought him a few years earlier, where Sullivan Barrera at that time only had lost to Andre Ward. More experience, better amateur, more skilled, smaller, not much of a puncher, but he punches enough to make you, concerned. You don't want to get hit by him. He might not be a KO artist. I say this about guys like Shakur Stevenson or even a Devin Haney. No, they're not big punchers, but you don't want to get hit by them, Same thing with Floyd. I learned that with Floyd, actually, when his fighters, his opponents, said that he was one of the hardest punchers, or he punches hard, because you just didn't see him coming. And Bivol is that kind of fighter. I just think he's too skilled for Zurdo. I do think Zurdo has a shot because of his size and his power. And if he were to pull off the upset, because he is the underdog in this, I won't be that shocked. It would be good to see a nice, a nice like surprise, and especially because Bivol just beat Canelo and everything, he would probably instantly be a star. But upset and all, like I love upsets in boxing, I don't think we're gonna get it here. I think Bivol is just too disciplined, and I think that's the key thing: discipline. There's not much room. He doesn't leave much room for mistakes, and I don't think he's gonna start Saturday night. All right. So anyway, I have Bivol winning a decision. I think Zurdo is gonna have his moments. I think he might even possibly hurt Bivol momentarily, or buzz him. But overall, I think Bivol is going to win, and I think it's going to be a pretty good fight. All right, I'm thinking like 8 rounds to 4, 9 rounds to 3, But I got Bivol winning this fight. All right, so anyway, please, if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. Please smash that thumbs up if you like the content, and I'll be back soon with more breakdowns. See you on the next one. Peace.